Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Today's episode is brought to you by NetSuite. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. Head to netsuite.com/LockedOnNCAA for special end-of-year financing on the #1 financial system for growing business. This will be the final podcast before we head into the Christmas holiday, and I can feel like there's really no better guest to have than my good friend Aaron Torres of the Aaron Torres podcast. He really talks about anything and everything you possibly want to, and he's kind of the I want to call him the prodigal son of Razorback fandom, but he's definitely one that we've accepted into the arms of Razorback fans, even though he's never even visited the state. But Aaron, appreciate you joining us, man.
I appreciate you having me. It's so funny. I never have been to Arkansas. I was supposed to come down 2 years ago for the Kentucky game, the one that was a Calipari got thrown out of, I think. And
yeah,
we don't have to talk about the rest. Calipari got thrown out, and that's where the game ended as far as I'm concerned. Last minute travel snags. So, some other people are trying to get me down this year. Got to get to BWA. And I got to say, and we've probably talked about this at some point, I got to get me to a Hogs baseball game, man. Like those, listen, do I know anything about baseball? No. But, man, do those look fun. And, this was the first year that I really got a little bit into the college World Series and the college playoff and whatever. My alma mater was there, UConn, et cetera, et cetera. So I just bring it up to say I watched a lot of college baseball this spring, and it didn't really look like there was a better venue than, Baum Stadium? Is that accurate?
Yeah. It's officially called Baum Walker Stadium, but the Walker got added in like just a couple years ago. So it's still kind of Baum Stadium pretty much.
Yeah, because bombs when I was watching, they were getting hit there. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to do this. Sorry, by the way, for anyone watching on YouTube, just finished a workout. So I look like a slob. I'm not in the Christmas spirit like John. But anyway, you good, man? Everything good?
Yeah. It's just, I just got out of the gym, whatever, just got my pump on.
It was the pre-Christmas workout, like you said. Listen, I'm not throwing around plates like Traylon Burks or something over here, okay? Let's call a spade a spade. I do my little thing. What do they call it? I don't know what they call it. Something about it's not preventative, but it's basically I work out just enough so I don't look disgusting. That's basically my workout routine. That's really what it is. So.
Well, hey, whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes to get it done. That's all that matters. And that's the thing is the Christmas holiday up. It's kind of fun right now, just with Razorback football obviously being pretty good for a first time in a long time. It seems like going to a bowl game that people actually care about and are actually excited to go to. And then like Razorback basketball, which is perfectly timed that we had you on today. Because if we were going to have you on yesterday and talk about how it's all, doom and gloom with Razorback basketball, it probably wouldn't have been as fun. But at least they bounced back last night against Elon. And I was even tweeting about this during the game. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the entire thing, but I was like, Musk switched up the rotations. He switched up the starters. And it seemed like that was probably the best game that they've had as a collective team, maybe all season long. They hit the open man. They were making good decisions. They were hitting the threes when they were supposed to. Jackson Robinson was doing really good too. So I'm hoping that this was the turnaround that Razorback basketball needed, because conference play starts next week, man, and it ain't going to get any easier in the SEC.
No, and everyone was asking me over the last, even you beat Cincinnati, you beat K-State, but Cincinnati game was a rally and whatever, and then you don't really play anybody, and then obviously what happened against Oklahoma. Oh, everyone's asking, what's wrong with the Razorbacks? How worried should I be? Is this? And it's like, I think what we have to understand is, I know we think of the Razorbacks as having a bunch of new guys, or a bunch of returning guys with Devo Davis and Jalen Williams, but everybody's playing a new role. JD Note is the leading scorer. He was starting after coming off the bench last year. I know the last couple games he's gone back to the bench, which maybe that's the best role for him. Devo Davis, I say this all the time, like when Arkansas fans are worried, like what I sit there and say is, look at what the team looked like at this time last year. Devo Davis didn't play from what I remember. Maybe this was the time where he was finally starting to get some run, but it took Muss, into the middle of conference play to figure out, who he has, who plays well together, what works, what doesn't. And I just think that's kind of where we are in college basketball for so many of these programs right now. I mean, I think we all love college football and we all kind of understand what's at stake every single week in college football, where Clemson loses to Georgia week 1, their backs against the wall the whole season long. Where basketball, you have this time to get right, to figure things out, to do all that. And I think this is going to be an annual thing at Arkansas, like it is with Kentucky and Calipari, like it is sometimes at Duke with Coach K, where when you're just bringing in a bunch of new guys every single year, it does take some time. And then, as I said, even though you have quote unquote returnees this year, everybody's playing a significantly different role than last year. So I definitely, I definitely got a few tweets and obviously doing some interviews, doing your radio show, everything like that. Get asked if there's cause for concern. And I would say if the team was looking and defending like they were over the weekend in February, it'd be one thing. But late December, I know you don't want to lose to Hofstra. I get that. But I think everything's going to be fine. That'd be my prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it as, you don't want to lose those games, but for crying out loud, like, Bama lost to Davidson last night, and so it's like good teams still lose games that they shouldn't, that they're not supposed to. Like, it happens in college basketball, especially this year. So I wasn't concerned. And what I did like seeing from last night, at least in the press conference after the game against Elon, is that the player said that Devo Davis actually called a players only meeting.
That's great.
I guess yesterday or Monday, and was like, they said that was kind of the difference in what the team changed their mentality and maybe why they came out with a little more fire in this game too, which have always been interesting. I'm like, man, it seems like players only meetings can either mean like something that's really good and everyone gets refocused, or it means like they're about to turn it on the coach and like, start being whistleblowers and saying all the stuff that's going on. So maybe it was something as simple as that needed to get this team going, is just a recalibration and a player like Devo Davis saying, hey, let's just meet up. Let's figure this out and let's get it going, because SEC plays around the corner. And if we want to get to that next level, we got to get ready right now.
Well, and that's the other element of it too, right? Is you have the basketball putting the puzzle pieces together, but then you also have the off the court stuff, right? And like, so I think Devo Davis is awesome. I watched all the games last year. The Oral Roberts shot will go down in Razorback lore forever. But part of what made that team successful, you had a bunch of older guys that kind of took on leadership roles, Justin Smith, Jalen Tate, and they were new last year, and it took them a while to get comfortable. And so, like, even with somebody like Devo Davis, like, we think of him always a returnee. It's his second year in the program. He's a sophomore. And so we just automatically assume that he's going to make a leap, or he's going to take on not just the statistical things that whoever that's gone, Jalen Tate, Moses Moody, whatever, but a leadership role too. And so I just think it's such a different sport, man. And it's just, it takes time. This is what this time of year is for. I know the hard, the fan that's paying their hard-earned money doesn't want excuses, and two, they don't want to see the games against Elon, against this team, against that team. But they really are important to get you right, because as you said, John, like SEC play is going to start here. You have to get win. Let me give you an example. Like, look at what happened with Kentucky last year. Is that Calipari, traditionally, and he did it again this year, he builds in about like 8-10 wins into the schedule from early to mid-November until right up into SEC play, because he's like, dude, I can't just roll the ball out here. I can't send my team to the Maui Invitational, into this, into that, and play this team and play that team. They're not ready. And so last year, what happens? It's COVID. You're not playing out of conference games. The out of conference games you're playing are against Power 5, Power 6 teams, because you don't want to be facing teams that test differently than you, all that stuff. But what happened in Kentucky? They lose one or two, and they never got back on track. And so, again, if I'm a season ticket holder, Bud Walton, would I love to see some more marquee games early in the year? Yes, but there's also a fundamental reason why not only Coach Muss, but Calipari, I think Elon just played Duke the other day. Like, everybody's doing this. And so I'm with you as to the importance of, kind of these early season games, the players only stuff. It takes time to figure this stuff out. Now we see what happens heading into SEC play.
Want to tell everybody about Prize Picks, and if you still haven't signed up, folks, what are you waiting for? It's the leader in daily fantasy, and it's so made easy when it comes to college football and also college basketball. They have more props than anyone else in the world. And right now, if you go to their website or use their award-winning app and use promo code Locked On, you'll get an instant deposit match up to $100. It's that simple. You can check them out on their award-winning app on the App Store or Google Play. It easily can be made with your entries in 60 seconds or less. And also, it's safe and offers fast withdrawals. So it is the best app to do these types of things when it comes to prop betting and college sports. And right now, if you go to, again, prizepicks.com, use promo code Locked On, or go to the App Store and download the app today, you will get a 100% match of your first deposit up to $100 instantly. It's at Prize Picks, where the daily fantasy is made easy. Also, just imagine this, folks. This is it. This is the putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours. But on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is that how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software? To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle. It's the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth with visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR planning, budgeting, and more. NetSuite is everything you need to grow, all in one place. With NetSuite, you can automate your processes and close your books in no time while staying ahead of the competition. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite. For the new year, NetSuite offers a new financing program for those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/locked. So head to netsuite.com/locked for the special one-of-a-kind financing offer on the #1 financial system for growing business. Again, at netsuite.com/locked. Aaron Torres of the Aaron Torres podcast is our guest here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. And Aaron, I know we talked a lot of Razorback basketball, and I guess the ultimate question becomes is like this team that for Arkansas, it's whether it's fair or not, so much expectation was put on them because of last year and because they made the Elite Eight. And even though you lost some key players, you replaced them with about as good of a transfer portal get that you could get when it comes to Chris Likes, Stanley Amude, Adisi Tony, guys like that. And so the expectation came along with it. And I think that people just are starting to kind of get a little antsy where they don't know if this team's good or not. You know, they just don't know if the games they won were just against bad opponents, if they're actually capable of taking it to the next level, maybe getting back into the NCAA tournament, making a run. So the question becomes of like, is this team good? Like from what you've seen, from what you've been able to witness, I know that conference play really dictates how good a team is, but in your opinion, is this Razorback basketball team a good team?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a good team. By the way, you mentioned the transfer portal. Here's another one. How about Texas? Texas hasn't beaten anybody this year, and they had, got, all conference high major guys. Chris Beard goes. It's an adjustment period. I still like them. I still like Arkansas. So is Arkansas good? Yes. When you have, Adis Tony, as you said, 14 and a half, 15 points a game in ACC play last year. When you have Devo Davis, who I still think hasn't come close to hitting his ceiling of what he's capable of this year. Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams. There's so many Jalen's now. I get every time I trip up. But, JD Note and Chris Likes as well. Like, yes, they're a good team. I think what's going to be interesting is it's going to take time. And the SEC is better this year. I think some teams we're still learning about, like Alabama is really interesting right now, as you kind of referenced as we're recording here, I guess Wednesday morning. They just took a loss on Tuesday night against Davidson. LSU has a good win-loss record, but they haven't really played anybody of note. Kentucky may be going in the right direction. They have kind of a weird game against Western Kentucky tonight. That means way more to the team that they're playing than it does to them. So I could go on and on, but I think it's a good team. And I do think the SEC is better, probably like 1 through 8, top half of the league than it was last year. But there's no team that I also see that I sit there and say like, oh my, the way that, like, I think Duke is head and shoulders above everybody else in the ACC. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of other teams, maybe, I don't know, Purdue in the Big Ten. Like, I don't think there is that team in the SEC. And so one, it's good news. Two, there's lots of wins to be had, and there's lots of quality wins to be had as well. And so it's so funny, John. I mean, I remember even this time last year, early January, mid-January, late January, the conversation was, can we just get into the tournament and see what happens? Then you start winning games, you start getting comfortable, you start getting hot, you start realizing, okay, maybe this team has a lot more potential. And so I think for any fan to be giving up on this team or putting a ceiling on what this team is capable of, I just think it's way, way, way too early. And I should mention, by the way, that's a lot of programs across the country, whether it is Texas, Kentucky, Alabama right now. Like, I don't think because Alabama lost to Davidson on Tuesday, their season is over, and they'll never possibly match what they did last year. You got to recalibrate. You got to get better. You got to figure it out. And we'll see if the Hogs, among many other teams, can do that.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the games you brought up that I kind of want to dive into another topic, which you've been tweeting a lot about, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on, is this fear right now, of course, with COVID reemerging and these cases popping up and people getting tested positive when they're so asymptomatic. We've seen already, like, the NBA has been affected, the NFL has been affected, but college basketball for sure has been impacted by this. And, Kentucky and trying to find some games and playing Western Kentucky and all that. Like, I look at this, this is something that's always going to be controversial because it seems like either on one side or the other. Like, you can't look at anything and
the Hog season is over or it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you got to be, you can't look at it like right in the middle. But like, I am seeing this, and I think that, like, Frank Martin, maybe of South Carolina, had a really strong statement about it, and some other coaches too. Like, I don't know. I'm getting to the point to where if you have these young athletes who are in the fittest of fits, like they're in their best shape of their lives, and they are asymptomatic, but because of policies where they're having to go through these rigorous testings and they just come up positive one day, it's like they have to be out for 10 days or whatnot. So much so that even I forgot if it's a conference. I think it's a conference thing. Maybe it's even the ACC where it's like, if you test positive and you can't play, you can't, it's not games get postponed, you forfeit the game. Yeah. And then you get a loss for that, even though you have people that are vaccinated. I don't know. It just seems like such a complicated, ridiculous thing right now, which I'm hoping gets adjusted and changed, because it seems like it's in college basketball, especially, like you're talking about having huge implications on these team seasons and whatnot. But yet at the same time, it seems like the policies that they have in place right now aren't the ones that you want to have, and don't seem like it's very good for both the safety and the health of the players and the coaches and everything, and also the betterment of the programs and the student athletes in college basketball as well.
Well, it was interesting because in the preseason, when the forfeit policies went into place, my understanding, and I was just wrong on this, I didn't understand. I thought you were only forfeiting games if the people that were testing positive were not vaccinated. And that was no different than the NFL, NBA, a push to get players vaccinated. And so to see over the last 4, 5, 6, 10 days, whatever it's been, this wave of cancellations, it makes no sense to me, John. And I think two things are really sticking out to me. One, first of all, as you said, they're just going down as forfeits. The leagues are making no attempt to make up these games. And like, I think every situation is different, right? Like, Memphis couldn't play Tennessee in the out of conference because Memphis does have a bunch of really, like, unvaccinated guys. And so, like, yeah, I don't think Rick Barnes, it should be his priority to make up that game. But then you have literally, and I know of one team that is currently on COVID pause. Their entire team is vaccinated, the entire coaching staff, everybody in the travel party, doctors, whatever. And they're on pause right now. And they're like, we had 2 positives. They're asymptomatic. Nobody's sick, whatever. And it's like, it doesn't make sense. And so, and to me, like, I just think, I guess the policies were put into place at a different time, but we now know, and this is not controversial, this is not political. The vaccine does not stop the virus. The vaccine limits how sick you get if you get the virus. And so that is something that is pretty indisputable at this point. And so to me, I don't think we should be testing vaccinated players. I've had this stance since May or June when Chris Paul had to miss NBA playoff games because he tested positive, and he must not be vaccinated. No, he is vaccinated. So why is he missing games? We spent all winter, we always spent all summer long in college sports pushing for vaccines. We made this big deal when Ole Miss became the first football team. Lane Kiffin, all the things he did wrong, but look he got his whole team vaccinated. He's a hero. Let's put him on the dollar bill. Like, it was like insane how much we freaking talked about it, And so, like, to me, I'm just sitting here saying, the players did what is asked of them, and you're still punishing them. And you're right, John. It is affecting, seasons, and it's affecting careers, and it's affecting jobs. And so people understand, like, when you forfeit, it doesn't technically count against your resume the way I understand it. But imagine in a league that is a little bit top heavy, where say you're in the Pac-12, and I'll just give you an example. Arizona's supposed to play. There's 3 ranked Pac-12 teams right now: USC, UCLA, and Arizona. Arizona's supposed to go to LA next week. If those 2 games get canceled, I mean, Arizona's still a good team, but that completely alters what their resume will look like without having the chance to play those teams, especially on the road. And so now all of a sudden, does Arizona fall from a 1 seed to a 3 seed because they couldn't play the 2 best teams in the league? And so that's just an example of how this is being impacted. And I just think, whether it's sports, whether it's society, whether it's whatever, we've had this big push to get vaccinated. I'm sorry for the people that I'm off-putting on your show, John, here, but it's just, it's my honest opinion. And by the way, it's the opinion of people in college basketball right now. I'm telling you right now, nobody can say it. Frank Martin can, because he doesn't care. He's old. He doesn't, he's speaking for the people that can't. But it doesn't make sense to test vaccinated players with the data that we have. We know they're going to test positive, and I don't see how it can continue like this, John, especially if we're not going to make up games, because we're just the rest of the season is going to be on, for lack of a better term, it's going to be on the brink, because there's no way we're going to get in games. There's no way that after a week or 2, we're going to move past this. That's just not going to happen. And so I don't know who's going to be the first. I'm proud of the NFL for making the decision that they are no longer testing vaccinated players. I know it's more complicated in college. I know that every conference has a different law, and there's state laws, and there's this and there's that. But there has to be a better way, because if we keep going like this, we're not getting in a season. I'm just telling you right now.
No, not at all. And like, that's the thing that, like, I think it was when Frank Martin was like, hey, we're the same things that happened last year when we didn't have the vaccine, when it came to how things were handled, is being handled the same way this year when we have vaccines. Like,
let me jump in real quick. Let me jump in. Just one thing on top of that, exactly right, is just think about this at the most basic level. No matter where you stand, people, you don't know people, you had it, you got sick, you didn't. Louisville, Kentucky got played last year in a pandemic without fans in the stands. This year, my understanding is, well, first of all, Calipari said everybody on his team not only has the vaccine, but has the booster. Louisville, I don't know what their vaccination rate is, but my guess is the vast majority of that team is vaccinated. So we could play when there was, if you think the vaccine is the be all end all, we played last year without the vaccine, but we can't this year with the vaccine. Like, that just doesn't make sense at the most fundamental level. And so you hit on all the points: young, healthy. I always bring up the point, these student athletes have the access to the best medical people in the world. Duke Medical Center is one of the best hospitals in the world. UCLA Medical Center is one of the best hospitals in the world. God forbid something really bad did happen, they'd be under great watch. And listen, man, we could get off this, but there's enough data now. And the last thing, we're not going to get off, because I have one more point, and that's the difference between last year and this year. We have fans in the stands. Like that Memphis Tennessee game, I know somebody that was walking into the arena, and the game was in Nashville. They don't live in Nashville. They drove 3, 4, 5 hours. They had to pay for a hotel. They got up, it was a noon Eastern tip off. They got up at 6 a.m. to get to Nashville for the game. It's like, what are we doing? And so, like I said, there's got to be a better way. Sorry to the people that was off-putting to, but like you said, it's controversial, but I don't even know that it's that controversial anymore. I don't think there's very many people that still believe that we should be following the same protocols that we were following this time last year.
No, I agree with you completely. I mean, that's kind of the stance that I've always taken too, where, if you just look at it's about looking at data and looking at, because I think here's what I want. And I know that we are talking about it, but it's important and it's on people's minds right now. So, but my whole thing is I want to be at a point to where people, whether it's, the NCAA or whoever's involved, just to come out and kind of say what's the right thing to do, because a lot of times I feel like they're just trying to make sure that they don't get any bad press or bad publicity and having a stance. But I wish it would just be like this, where they say, listen, we don't really know for a fact about how this virus works and what it is. We don't know how it's going to impact certain individuals compared to other ones. We don't know. But let's just do the best we can, and then we can continue on to play the games. that's kind of what I think that not only the NCAA, but sports in general should do is just say, listen, the vaccinations or whatever, we want our players vaccinated and all that. That's fine. But, when one type of thing pops up like this, start canceling games and postponing and all that, it just seems like a really rash decision to just go down that road. And I just have this fear that, we don't want to go back to where we were last year. And I don't want this virus to be around either. Like, no one wants this thing here. Like, everyone wants it to go away, and everyone wants to do their part to make sure that it goes away. Like, I think everyone's on board with that. But I don't know. I look at it from the sports perspective and seeing how so many players professionally or college or whatnot have been impacted in this way, but at the lowest type of level. Like, none of them, I don't think there's been any hospitalizations because of COVID when it comes to professional sports or anything like that, nor in college. And if there is, it's a very, very small number. But I just feel like I'm hoping that NFL and all these people are kind of getting together and going to be like, listen, it's there. We're going to be cautious of it. We're going to be aware of it, but we got to move on. We got to keep going this because nobody can afford to have cancellations of games and shutting down the NCAA tournaments and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just,
how about bowl game? I mean, JT Daniels tested positive yesterday. Like, what, it doesn't make sense. And yeah, man, I agree with everything you said, but college football, I mean, let's just use, like, imagine if JT Daniels and Stetson Bennett both test positive for Georgia, right? And they're both vaccinated and they're both asymptomatic. Like, Kirby Smart's career could completely be altered over the next 2 weeks, one way or the other, right? Like, Kirby Smart gets blown out by Michigan. Like, he may never, like, you have the number one team in the country all year long. You'll get blown out your last 2 games. He may never recover from that. Flip side, Stetson Bennett's healthy. JT Daniels is healthy. Whatever quarterback he thinks is best actually works out, unlike in the SEC championship game. You beat Michigan, you beat Alabama to win the championship. And, like, his whole, and I'm not saying we should feel bad for Kirby Smart, who probably makes $7 million a year, but I'm just saying, like, his whole life could be different. JT Daniels' life could be, I mean, JT Daniels comes in off the bench at college football playoff, back-to-back wins national championship. He maybe goes from not even entering the draft this year to a first-round pick, millions of dollars, life changed forever. And I don't know his specific vaccination status, but I mean, imagine if he's asymptomatic and vaccinated right now. He's like, well, what else am I supposed to do? So it's just, there are real world consequences, and there's always a balance. But we do have enough data right now. We do know enough I don't know. I feel like we know enough now to confidently say we can play sports, especially with vaccinated athletes. And I will say, a guy that I've been pretty critical of, Adam Silver, I give him credit. The NBA commissioner came out and said we have to learn to live with this. Now, I think their policies are still probably not where I would have them. But, like you said, people need to speak up. Guys like Adam Silver saying that, the NFL making the decision they did, I believe, are steps in the right direction.
BetOnline has you covered all holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues to march through the college bowl season as well as the pro football playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all sports action this season. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. At BetOnline, it is the easiest and fastest way to bet on all your favorite sports, so don't wait to take advantage of the amazing offers available. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. Also, Built.com and Built Bar have offered a great deal this holiday season as well. If you head to their website at Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, you're going to get 15% off your next order. You've heard me talk about it. So those of you who may be going through the holiday season, packing on those LBs because of all the great food, that's great. That's what the holiday season is supposed to be about. But doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy really healthy and convenient Built Bars while also having something that tastes amazing as well. When you're trying to get back into the gym, when your New Year's resolution is going to be coming up, it is the perfect item. So head over to Built.com, enter in promo code LOCKED15, and it doesn't matter how much of the store you order, you get 15% off. Order the whole thing, and you'll still get 15% off at Built.com with promo code LOCKED15. Aaron Torres of the Aaron Torres podcast is our guest right now on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So, Aaron, now we talked enough sports, and since this is going to be the final podcast of the week before we get into the Christmas holiday, I have to ask you because I know you can have some fun with this too. Since it's Christmas, what would you say in your life was your favorite Christmas gift that you ever received?
Oh boy. I don't remember if this was a Christmas gift. I'm just going to say hypothetically for this conversation. I'm a child of the 90s. I got like literally like a official Ken Griffey Jr. jersey, like a real one, not like the
Oh
knockoff
man.
Target brand one. I swear, my memory may be going and I may be making this up, but I swear I wore that to school literally every single day. Like to the point that my mom was like, "You have to wear something else." Like not that we weren't clean people, okay? I'm not saying I'm not a clean person. I shower all the time, even though I did just come from the gym. But like I seem to remember wearing it like literally every single day. Ken Griffey Jr. jersey, greatest, like officially licensed, real fabric, stitches on the back. And John, I know you're a few years younger than me. I don't know if you remember how big Ken Griffey Jr. was, but like he was, it was Michael Jordan, Ken Griffey Jr., and then everybody else when I was a kid. So
Well, hold on. How old do you think I am?
I don't know.
Well, how old are you?
In my mid-30s, child of the 90s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been in my mid-30s too, bro.
Okay, so you remember.
Yeah, man. I was born in 1988. Like I know all about the
So you
90s
know
and
Griffey, yeah. It's
yeah,
never
yeah.
Griffey. Yeah. He
Because
was
I was
great, man.
yeah, I was even talking about like with friends of mine too. Because I didn't grow up a huge baseball fan. I love playing it, but I didn't watch it. But there were like a few times, obviously, like the '98 home run race between McGuire and Sosa was a big deal. But yeah, Ken Griffey was just cool. Like you just the epitome of cool. And if you were a sports fan, you kind of knew that too. But
What was the best gift you ever got?
man, like it's kind of like the ones that you remember that you like just appreciated the most, or maybe the something that you wanted, or it could be in the case where you didn't think you wanted it until you got it and you're like, oh man, this was awesome. But I would have to say it's either one of two things. Again, being a kid in the 90s, I remember when I got my very first PlayStation. And
Sure.
what was funny is because I wanted an N64 though. Like I wanted a Nintendo 64 and my mom got me a PlayStation. And I remember I was like, not bummed, but it was kind of like, okay, all my friends have an N64. We'll see how PlayStation. And then it ended up being like life changing because then I just stuck with
Wow.
PlayStations like the rest of my life. Like I loved PlayStations, got the PlayStation 2 and the 3 and the 4. If I could find a PlayStation 5, I'd probably get one of those too. But it would probably have to be that. Or I remember I'm not a shoe guy at all. Like I will keep the same shoes for years. Like I've had my Chacos for like 3 years. I've had the same pair of Sperry's for years. Like I don't do shoes. It's just not my thing. But I remember when I got a pair of Jordans back in the 90s, and they were the ones that I think they were pretty common, but they were white shoes. And then kind of on the heel, they had the red, like slick texture to it. And it had 20 and it had 23 like on the little flap and everything. And I remember just how cool I thought I was, man, because I wore those to school every single day and they got so dirty and so disgusting, and I wore them out. But dude, I think yeah, the Jordans were definitely something where nowadays, I mean, there's so many dadgum shoes, you don't know which to choose from. But at the time, man, Jordans were about as cool as it got.
I thought the whole point of having Jordans was to not actually wear Jordans. Am I wrong on that? Like
I mean, that's the thing is
dirty,
now,
so-
yeah. Like as a kid though, man, it was like, no, I wore them on the playground, on the big toy. I was out there, because like I played basketball in them on the blacktop, back in elementary school.
Now I know you're from the 90s playing on the blacktop.
Oh yeah,
The way
dude.
basketball was intended to be played.
Exactly. Like I was thinking about that too. It's like you mentioned child of the 90s. Like some of these kids just don't know, man. Did you like on the blacktop, did you ever have I don't know if this was common, but when I was in elementary school, we had little like spray painted spots on the blacktop where and during PE or whatever, you'd have to go to your spot and you have to stand there until the class got going and like stuff like that. I just remember I'm like, man, it was so regimented. And being on that blacktop and having Foursquare kind of like set up and everything, man. Like those were the days. It was so cool.
I haven't thought about this in a while, but remember how dirty your hands used to get when you'd play basketball outside? Like the ball just got, I hadn't thought about that in probably 20 years. I was like, damn, my hands used to get dirty. I remember my dad yelling at me one time because I washed my hands and didn't clean the sink, and kids these days,
I know, because you had those basketballs. I remember I had like a special edition Space Jam basketball that had zero grip on it whatsoever because we wore it down. It was literally like catching like a 1 pound bowling ball, like and it just was so slick. And yeah, our hands were disgusting afterwards and everything. Like, yeah, those types of things. And also, I remember, and again, I don't know if I think it's probably still common, but I remember I grew up in a cul-de-sac. And we had a basketball goal in the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And some kid tried to dunk on it and he bent the rim and we didn't replace it. We just kept it that way. So like maybe that's why I didn't make it as a basketball star because every day I was just shooting on this rim that was like bent this way, where one side it was a lot easier to make a three than it was the other side. But man, we just made it work. Back in those days, we just made it work.
Yeah, those were good times. But anyway, yeah, kids now they got Instagram and whatever. We had dirty hands playing basketball out on the street. So
yeah, that's how it was done, man. That's how it was handled. But either way, well, Aaron, man, appreciate you joining us, dude. It's you said it's awesome to have you on, and actually in video. Normally it's just audio, but the fact that we were able to have video into this makes it a lot more enjoyable. But either way, have a Merry Christmas, dude. Hopefully you'll have a chance to come down to Arkansas sometime. And we'll party it up on Dixon Street, man. But it's good to catch up with you.
Can't wait. It will happen soon. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas to everybody listening. Thank you for having me, John. I appreciate it.